Welcome to the Lighthouse Experiment, a Freedom Center Church podcast.
All right. I approve this recording.
Sweet. Well, welcome back to the Lighthouse Experiment Podcast from Jacksonville to Michigan. It's going to be a good night. So welcome back, everybody. I'm super excited to have our friend Kelly Abel on with us tonight.
I'm excited to be here.
I know.
Welcome to the show.
I've never done anything like this before, so this is cool.
It'll be really cool. So, Kelly, you've taught iGrow. You've been at Freedom Center Church for a long time, you and your family.
Yes.
But you have entrepreneurship in your family.
Yes.
So you kind of travel around a bit and stuff like that. But what's cool, so I guess just share a little bit about yourself, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. We're actually in Jacksonville, Florida right now. I lived here for about 15 years. 3 children with my husband, Dan. And they were all born at Jack's Beach, basically. They're all beach babies. And then after 15 years, the business took us back north. My husband and I are both from Ohio. Moved here when we got married and then made it back up north to Michigan, where we now reside. And this is how I know these two. But because of business. And we've been there for about 11 years. Mm-hmm. And so we've been at Freedom Center Church for 10 of those 11 years, I'd say, like committed, involved, doing the thing. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, we love it.
And you guys are actually in the same the book class right now, right?
Yes. We are. Yes. It's been a cool experience. So
it has been. It's been hard to write. We've been having some stuff going on in our little EMS community, so it's been kind of got the not really writer's block, just been preoccupied with
like
doing what I got to do.
Yeah.
So, little side note: when I was little, so before the California days, so I was actually born in Johnson City, Tennessee. And then we lived for like 18 months or something in Raleigh, North Carolina. Okay. And then we lived for a couple years in Jacksonville.
Oh, did you?
And then we moved to Memphis. That's where my little brother was born. And then California.
Wow. Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's fun. I did not know that.
Yeah. So a little short time
in Jacksonville,
in Florida. That's where my mom, she would have just stayed there forever.
Yeah.
As she calls it.
Yes.
Like the sand dunes and all that kind of stuff was her thing.
Yeah. It probably looks very different though. I mean, it is so built up right now, like it just, and they keep building. I mean, even from when we, first moved here back in 98, like it's what used to be forests are now homes and businesses and all of that. So lots of people in Jacksonville compared to little old Linden, Fenton, Michigan.
Right.
So,
a little town.
Yeah. So we went from big city, transient city, Mayport, naval base city to rural, live in one light town. So yeah, very different culturally.
Yeah.
So fun fact, did you know that Kelly's dad served on the fire department and was a Coast Guard veteran?
I did. I did not know the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
But you had told me about the fire department.
Yeah. So you went to Boston, right? Not too long ago. We kind of shared back and forth a little bit through Facebook, I know. So he loves Boston. He was stationed in New England area, went up and down that coast for a time. And he loves Boston. So when he found out my son was, his grandson was going to school there, I mean, he was like ecstatic. And so it was fun to be there this last time that we just went to visit Zach, and we got to buy some firefighters some lunch. They came in and we were trying to be anonymous. Didn't happen because like everybody walked out of the restaurant. We're the only family sitting there, and they're just like, must have been you. So so they told us to come down to the station. They had some shirts for us, and I was
cool.
My dad's birthday was just like the day before. And I'm like, we need to go get Papa Mike a shirt. Like that would make his day. And so we visited the fire station. And what I was telling Ashley, what was so fun about that is that, my dad's retired firefighter from Akron, Ohio. And like I grew up going to the station, visiting them and being on trucks and doing all the things. And my kids, when they were born, he was still working for the first few years, and getting pictures, sitting them on the bumper and all that stuff. So I was like, we have to go get a picture and do the thing for Papa Mike. So that's what we have to do. So
it's such a cool thing, because like when we were there, we went to one of the days we went to Jamaica Plain, and there's a firehouse there just at the end of town.
Yeah.
And so I started, there's one of the guys is out like cleaning a truck or doing some probie maintenance. And I started talking to him and, talking about being on the fire department. And it was kind of like, yeah, old man. And then I said, well, I just recently had to retire from active because I had broke my neck. And then what was wild is like all the dudes were like, what? And now there's like, we're talking to all the guys,
Yeah.
And it's, and it was not, I'm like, listen, don't get too excited. It's not like a line of duty thing. I don't know when it happened.
Yeah.
At just some point in my life, my neck broke and found out about it at a chiropractor. But what's also like firefighter nerd thing is like they have their fuel right at the fire station and we don't have that. So I was just like blown away. It's like, you guys fill the trucks right here.
Oh,
and these dudes
cool.
were like, yeah, doesn't everybody? I was like, no, man.
Oh.
We got to go like 5 miles away.
Yeah.
Like way out of our way and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it's super interesting how welcoming, and that's just the culture. That's firehouse culture. Is if we're there, like in Grand Blanc, if we're there, we put the doors up, and the whole idea is so people will come in.
Yeah. So I was saying my kids, as we approached, Huntington Ave in Boston to go to this firehouse, I'm ringing the bell and they're just kind of like, Mom, what are you doing? And I'm like, they love it. I'm like, they love visitors. Like they want us to come. So I'm like, they're going to welcome us right in. And he did. He was great. And then he was the one who said, hey, yeah, go get your picture taken. I'll do it. So yeah, it's pretty fun. So good memories. It just brought up a lot of stuff. And that monument that, it was really moving. Yeah. So there was a monument down the Commonwealth in the Back Bay, and it's a memorial to firefighters that have lost their lives in a particular hotel fire, and it was just beautifully done.
Yeah, it's lined up right with the hotel, Ashley. So like from when you're looking at the monument, when you look past the monument, right on the corner is the hotel, and it had like it was like a building collapse back in the 70s, I believe. Okay. So there I am. Kelly said this is where this spot is, where this memorial. So we went and found it, and I'm looking at it and reading all the names and getting all like emotional. And then this other family came, and they're like, no clue what this is. This was awesome. No clue what it is. Oh, this must be for firefighters or something like that. Almost like naively like flippant about it. And then the dad was like, oh, this is, he saw me. And then I had the opportunity to explain like all these guys died in a fire. And I was like in that hotel years ago.
Yeah.
That's built up now and it's condos and and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty moving. It's pretty fun. Yeah.
It's weird. The thing about being in like spending my pretty much whole adult life in this first responder community is like you feel that. Like not to say like you feel ghosts or anything, but you can just being in the presence of a memorial like that. Like, which is why I will openly admit I am scared to death to go to the 9/11 memorial.
Yeah.
I know that I should, but I just,
I
don't. I mean, that's the day I got hired. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah.
So it's just weird.
Yeah.
But it's,
and on this side, I'm like what we've talked about when like pastors like everybody wants everybody to stand and recognize. I'm like, I need to be there. I need to honor everybody and go see it. And if I need to bawl my eyes out when I'm there, like I need to honor that, So that's interesting to hear you say it like that.
Yeah, when you started, like when I started reading, like actually reading, because they were taking quotes of what happened, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that it was a reality of like we they they they're heroes no matter what. It comes
Mm-hmm.
down to like that they will run into a burning building to save my
Right.
life, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
don't think twice about it. And to hear their words, it's just you can feel their heart. You just see their heart.
Right.
It reveals why they do what they do in the words that they posted
Mm-hmm.
all over this beautiful stone, you know.
Yeah.
So it was
There's a cool quote that says the brave part, the bravery part is done when you sign up,
yeah,
and then everything else will just be in the line of duty.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you signed up to do. You know, it's not even a thought.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool.
And it's wild to share that with, and if people don't, like, I can remember saying, I think in either your kitchen, Ashley, or my kitchen, I think, or just on the show, I shared with you, like, I've been waiting my entire life for my grenade to jump on, and there was kind of a split second where you're like a wild thought, but
Yeah,
all this time later is cool because now you understand just from being with us all this time.
yeah,
But it's just, I don't know how to do anything else. So like thinking of doing other things is super frightening.
yeah.
Well, and I think more than that, there's a drive, like a compulsion, like I have to do this.
Right.
Like almost like I don't have any other choice. This is what I was knit together to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
it's not like I wouldn't know what to do. Like obviously God has continued to like lead your steps and continue to put
Mm-hmm.
you in like all these places and spaces as you're not going to be 82 and still on the rig. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and we've talked about some of that, but still this like I have to be here. I know I'm supposed to be here, and
Mm-hmm.
there's like nothing else that I could even fathom doing. Like
Yeah.
that's a neat place to be in. Like talking about purpose and talking about just God being so good to knit us together, and then have us do like go do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you know.
So what does that look like as it moves over into your family? So like it's not a thought for you, but like for your wife and your kids, like how do they interpret that the same? Like do they really think about it? Because I'm trying to think of like as watching my dad go to the station and work 24-hour shifts off 48, every third day he's gone, right?
Yeah.
um and then he had to be an EMT. It was required on his fire
Yeah.
department. So, and he would come home and tell some stories, but they were always like the funny ones, the ones that we could tolerate. Like he never shared
Right.
anything that was.
Yeah.
And so I think it protected me, right, from
Mm-hmm.
probably thinking about my dad when he goes to work. And so what does that look like when you're speaking with your wife or your kids about work? Do they ask questions? Do they,
Um,
or this is just what my dad does?
just pretty much is just what I do.
Yeah,
Uh, Griffin really shows the most interest in like actually what's the thing.
yeah,
Everybody else, like Reagan's too little to know.
yeah.
Carrie, I've always been a paramedic and a fireman, so she doesn't,
I don't know any different.
it's not even a consideration. She doesn't ask that I do my job less to like, now I don't, well, I guess to me, I don't take risks, but I guess,
To her, it might
to
be.
her,
Yes.
like it's all calculated, in my mind, what I do. I will say with COVID is the first time ever that she actually asked me to do all the things because she didn't want me to die.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
other than that, it's never been like the kids, like I said, they're too little.
Yeah.
Really. The older kids, I mean, they're teenage daughters. So I'm sure at some point they'll care, but, they did. And now they kind of don't.
Right. Right.
But, Griffin's the most interested.
Yeah.
but he's my son. He's interested in how hot the hot sauce is, like what sports we're watching, all the things that I do. He's
which is like, how it goes and how it should be. Right. I know that's pretty cool. Yeah, well, even like the DeVries the other day where I was talking with Leanne, and Bella is 7 or whatever, and like her classmates are like, your dad's a firefighter, like almost like they don't even believe her, and she's like, no, really, like he really is a firefighter, so I think when Leanne came in to be like guest reader or something like that, they had to like ask Leanne, like, is Bella's dad really a firefighter?
Yeah.
So
this funny though about Griff is that because we have episodes of the podcast on YouTube, he's really more stoked that I'm on YouTube.
Yeah, my dad's on YouTube. Not that he's a firefighter.
I'm like, dude, like I literally saved a dude's life today. He got shot, and he's like, yeah, you're on YouTube.
I can watch my dad. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Griff, I'm helping your dad get famous. It's great.
Yeah.
Every kid wants to be a YouTube star. That's.
I guess.
Yeah.
It's funny though.
Yeah, that is funny. Yeah, I think when I was a kid too, I probably more, like in awe of what he did when I was younger than obviously teenager years, whatever. But then as I started to have children, it was like, oh no, let's go see Papa at the fire station. It was cool again. That kind of thing. But there was a pride in knowing what my dad did. It was very different, than what a lot of other kids' dads did.
Yeah.
So I just wondered if it was similar to that.
Well, so and it's what's cool is like, so for me, my dad worked for Pontiac. He worked like in the corporate zone offices and stuff. But when we were in Los Angeles, and we live in Southern California, like through Little League and church and whatever, we had a family friend, and that we've always known as Uncle George, not our blood uncle, but we always called him Uncle George. Yeah. But he was an LA fireman. So as a little kid, I can remember going to the firehouse. We would go ride motorcycles and just pick him up along the way out to the Mojave. But going to his station, and like as a little kid being like, I'm gonna be a fireman.
Yeah.
And my dad being like, you should be a fireman. And so like when people ask, I literally did the thing that I said I wanted to do when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Like stop off in the Army for a while, but
that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, my dad was a realtor. So, he scheduled his whole day around appointments and stuff. He was home usually like when we were getting home from school and stuff. And he did a lot more like home stuff because he could work around all that, So I have a lot of memories of just him running laundry or doing dinner and stuff because my mom worked 12-hour shifts at the hospital. She's an RN and she worked in the ICU unit. So there was a little bit, like I feel a little bit about my mom. Like I say all the time, like my mom was an amazing nurse. Like she loved being able to chart, take care of patients. She loved being in the intensive care unit because she felt like she really got to like
be used and
really use her skill set. But I remember a couple times her coming home and the patient that she had taken care of, like, because she would usually work like her 3 nights in a row and then have her 4 off or however that would work. And sometimes it would line up where she would have that same patient for those few days. And there was a couple times where she came home and talked about that her patient had passed. She told me one time about how one patient didn't have a DNR. And so she's like 80-some years old, like breaking ribs to get the patient back because the family wasn't ready to like let her, like for whatever situation and stuff. And so but like, because you've said before, like holidays and stuff like that, you guys just always work around it, and that's what we did. Like if my mom picked up Christmas Eve, she came home in the morning, and we just worked around all that stuff, and it was never a big deal.
Yeah, we had it down. Like if he worked Christmas Eve, then we knew Christmas morning was our deal. If he worked Christmas Day, we got to open all our presents after Grandma's house. Like we got to stay up extra late and do the whole thing there, and then go see him at the station the next day.
That's cool.
Like that was never.
It was never a big
it was
deal.
never a big deal. Like, oh man, we're missing or my dad's missing Christmas. Like, we never felt that way because we had it worked out in our family dynamic that that's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we do, and it's it's like it's totally with like younger guys coming up, younger girls too, coming into the business. We tell them that's like you're going to meet somebody and you're going to date and you're going to get married and it's going to be a family business. Yeah. It's going to have to be all in, because if not, it's just like, actually, this is, I think, common knowledge, but my first wife, she just wasn't in, and it was, and it's like this was pre-saved Jim, of course, but it was like, basically it was like, if you're not into what I'm doing, then you're not into me, and that's that. Because like this is, I like being in service to others is like breathing air for me, so I can't just be working at Home Depot or whatever you want me to do, so and it just and whatever, it's we're good and stuff, but it just wasn't for her, and then that was that. But
well, and then just the schedule shift change and stuff. I mean, we know another family who hubby is pilot, so he's home a week, gone a week, home a week, and gone a week and stuff. So just not being there every week for like the Bible study or small group, or not being there every week for the swim meet or something like that, it can I can see how it can be very, to have that added, like if it's just, hey, we're working around and we're always going to make the most of the time that we're together. Like if the goal is to have that value of time, that quality of time when we're together, then it's always like, it's just can be a joy and adventure, and you just work around it. But it's always like, dad's missing this or mom's missing this and mom's, whatever, and not here. It could be hard if you don't have that support to still sign your kid up for Cub Scouts or something like that, and still have support of family to continue that, so that when that parent is home and off shift, they can still be there, even though they can't be there every time, maybe because of scheduling and stuff. So I mean, there'd be stuff, especially when my mom worked nights, we always knew that next day had to be quiet around the house, because she would, during parts of the day and stuff like that, we'd come home from school and have to be super quiet for a little bit, because it's like she had to get her rest before she got up and did 12 hours again. So in some ways, I think we just learned to kind of tune in to those kind of needs of what that looked like, and it wasn't bad thing.
It was the way of life.
So it's really the only way of life I know. So
and your kids don't know any different, like you said.
They don't know any different.
And Carrie has known you from day one like that. So
So I mean, and she would tell you too, because when we first were together, we did 24-hour shifts. We stayed in bases, and so I worked, I think for the most part, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which was like the sweetest deal ever. But she would tell you that she enjoyed her 24 hours, like when I was on shift. She's like, she had a system. If I was ever on a Kelly day or something like that, it threw the whole system off. For all of us, I'd be like weirded out, like, why is everybody here? What's going on? So
I know that with just my husband travels a lot, and so there are just still times where I'm like, I'm good for the first few days, because I'm like, all right, and I'm doing all the stuff and I got it down, and I'm like, all right, you can come home now. But but I think that, like, even my dad loves to cook, and so maybe this is another question, like when you were at the station or whatever, like it seems like everybody kind of falls into a role, or what is their purpose when they're at the station, kind of thing. And so my dad was like, he loved to cook, so like he's cooking for all the guys, all the time. He loved to go to the grocery store. I remember one station he worked at literally was across the street from the grocery store, and I would drive by if he was working. I would sometimes see my dad pushing a grocery cart from the grocery store over to the station because he's like, I don't need to drive. I mean, it's right there. And it's a busy street. It was Market Street of Akron, but I would just giggle. I'm like, there's my dad. He's got groceries for dinner. I wonder what he's making, whatever.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was when he came home and so that's kind of the role he took when, he was home for the 48 hours. He would just cook for us. But he never, we were a family of 4, and he would cook for like 20 people. So he's making bean soup. Like, I remember bean soup and cornbread was the big thing in the winter. I mean, and it was this major pot, this huge pot of bean soup. It would last us for days. Yeah. But those are fun memories, favorite memories, like that are just.
I like to do that too. It's not Carrie cooks because she's done with school. She was doing like her master's and then like her next level, almost doctorate level online stuff.
That's pretty awesome.
So she was working and then coming home and doing school. So I'd do my shift and come home and cook.
Yeah.
But that was, for me, that's like a good switching of gears. If you've had, multiple bag calls or whatever,
right.
it takes
kind of like a stress reliever or processing time or
what's what's interesting is like before we did the house campus and even before Lighthouse Experiment, we had a little small group we were leading. And I can remember coming home and actually Aaron Stengel was in the class. He was in our group and really like saved the day for me because I came home and everybody was just standing there waiting on me because it's my house and I'm the leader of the group, like to pray over the meal. And I'd come off like just a horrible call and like directly home. And there was always that early on.
Yeah.
And there's that stressor of I'm going to be late to life group and all this stuff. So I'd done the call, left work, come home, and it's just a house full of people. And I really was in no place to try to process all that.
Yeah.
And the comment from like one just unknowing, unsuspecting human in our class was, "Oh, we've been waiting on you to get here to pray over the food." And I was just like, and just like right back out the door I went. But that night, Aaron just stepped up and just stepped in and, took over. So that's been cool to be with like a church body where people have gotten to know me, and more times than I even remember at this point, people have just been like, someone will ask a question on a Sunday morning and they'll be like, let's like divert your attention.
Yeah.
Or your friends ask you dumb questions and you still give them grace.
That was funny.
Have you done that before?
Oh no, I've never done that ever.
So what does your processing look like then? Like so we're doing a book class together, and I know that's probably some, processing through that as you write and you think, because I know I prefer to write. That's how I process what's in here. Like if you were to ask me what's wrong, Kelly, I'd be like, nah, I don't know what's wrong with me until I process it, get it out some way. So like what are some ways that you process, like if you come back from a bad call? And I know that you had a tough week last week, so like what did that
was different because of the nature of what happened. And I've been so kind of like hyper focused working with some other guys on incorporating like mental and emotional fitness as part of like first responder training, because none of us do that. Gotcha. And the reason nobody does that is because as soon as like the chief officers know that you're having some type of mental health struggle from whatever the case, then they might deem you non-operational. Then you get pulled off the squad or off the rig or off.
Yeah.
So no one wants to say anything. So, so last week that was different. Last week I put it on base camp straight away to get people, because for me that helps me if I know someone else is praying, even if I at that moment don't have the capacity to do so.
Just
like
people
someone else
entertaining
has
for
to
you.
handle this.
Yeah.
But on a typical week, most things, most calls, most scenarios, I can kind of compartmentalize and put them in different boxes, and I just kind of do that.
Yeah.
I thought that writing this book was going to be harder than it has been. I thought it was going to be really tough to go in those spaces, but then as it turns out, it's been
Is it been more
not so bad.
Yeah. Good. That's great.
You know.
Yeah.
And what's weird too is arrogant as it might sound, a lot of, I don't know if the arrogance was like a coping or a defensive mechanism, but I would be like, well, I don't think that these people's hearts can handle these stories, so I'll just keep them all, you know.
Yeah.
I can tell you that once. Yeah. Right. So one of the ones I write about is witnessing a dude commit suicide, and this is years ago. And I can remember having this conversation with Pastor Jim. I was like, I keep it for myself because I don't need that on your heart. And pretty much he was like, well, how arrogant are you to think that these people that care about you can't handle what you have going on? And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but that's a lot of times I just put it keep different boxes for different things. And
yeah. Sometimes I think about, I forget what battle it was, but in the Old Testament with Moses, every time he had his staff raised, they were winning, and every time they came down, they were losing. I just read that.
I'm in Exodus right now.
Are you serious?
I'm not kidding.
So is it Aaron and then the sister? What was that on the other side? Who was that on the other side? But this idea that nobody could be in Moses' shoes. Nobody would know what it would be like to be Moses because they're not him. They weren't given the responsibility to lead this nation.
Right.
Nobody was in his shoes to be drawn from the water and raised up in Pharaoh's house. Like, nobody had that position. And God called Moses. But yet he had people that raised his arms to support him. And so sometimes I think about that it's like, and we talked about that even last week, it will be impossible for me to ever really understand what you do, what that looks like, what it feels like, what it looks like, all the things. But I can do my best to come alongside you and support my friend and what he's doing and support his family, you know.
And I would think even just listening to some of those stories is support, even, I know you were saying, I don't know if they can handle it, but at the same time, it's like, no, I want to be able to handle it to some extent, because if that helps you, then that's what I'm here for,
Right.
So.
And I don't want to, it's almost like kind of going back to the 9/11 memorial. Like, I shouldn't hide my face because it's hard. I shouldn't hide my face because it would be hurtful to see it. It's like, whether I see it or not, it's real.
Right.
It's really happening. And so there's that little bit of, I don't know. It's that little bit of like, I don't want to, it's not an inconvenience to myself. Like, it's almost like, kind of almost back to, like you're saying, oh, how arrogant am I? Like, almost how arrogant would I be to be like, oh, that's what you're going through. I don't take any part in, it's almost like, no, that's part of you. And so I accept that just as much as I would accept you, because that's kind of part of the whole package.
Well, especially as the body of Christ. I mean, that's we're all different members and parts, and that's what we do for one another. That's where unity comes in,
It's wild too, because I was just thinking about this past weekend, because there was a New York fireman lost his life in a fire. Just another, like, in those big like commercial structure fires, it's pretty typical for a collapse to happen, and he was just caught up in a collapse. And so I share that, and then like the week prior, this friend of mine committed suicide, and then like the week prior, and I was thinking to myself, like, dude, do you ever share any good news about like like first responders. But at the same time, I just, at this point, especially since writing, I want people to know like what the commitment, what it really is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's what I was getting at earlier with when you're reading these quotes. That's showing that commitment and that devotion. I have no idea what that's like to really be committed to something like that. To that extent of jumping on a grenade for somebody, because that's basically what you're like. You're waiting to jump on that grenade, but you're pretty much doing it every time you get in the ambulance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I don't get to do that in that same way. So,
well, I mean, I fly a desk for my job, and unless like the scenario would have to be for me to have that like risk of personal harm while I'm working during the day, something terrible would need to happen for me to call that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in the course of my normal day, I'm not the first responder to an event.
Something cool happened. Not cool. Yes, cool. But I guess it is. It's like, is this good news or bad news? I don't know. But, I've been traveling a ton lately. And so this is the first time this has ever happened on a plane. But there was a diabetic. I think his sugar just dropped. It was an early morning flight. And so he was having some kind of episode. He was behind us. So I don't know what the commotion was or what triggered it. But he had some family members with him. And so the next thing I know is, they're getting on the PA system saying, if we have any doctors on board, please head to the main cabin. We need your assistance. And I mean, I've never had that happen. And it was, the cool thing about it was that 5 people just popped up and just ran back. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, these people don't know each other. They're going to go back there. They're going to work with each other. They're all different kinds of doctors. Maybe not even a doctor, but just maybe some sort of medical background. I don't know.
Right.
But I thought that was like the coolest thing to watch and see. And then you kind of hear conversation when they come back to their seats, because the one lady was sitting like behind us, and another doctor was sitting catty corner from us where I could see him when he came back to a seat, and and everybody was so appreciative, but I marveled at that. And then it made me start thinking, like, I'm on a plane a lot. I wonder what the probability of the amount of people that are on a plane, how many doctors are actually on board every time on a plane? Because I'm like, what do they do? I mean, like, if flight attendants aren't trained in any kind of, I don't know what's required of them to know anything like other than CPR maybe or something like that. But that was very eye-opening to me. Like, and none of them it wasn't even a thought. I mean, they just popped up and they're back. And he was fine. They let him off the plane first and got him to the help he needed. But it was
it's very strange, because it's like a reflex.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just Nick and I's first flight together when we were dating. He, son of a gun, I'm looking at the attendant ordering, like, I'd like my apple juice. And I turn around to Nick, and he's starting to, like, straighten up in his seat, having, like, a seizure or something. And I actually, like, I was telling the kids the other day, I'm like, I started yelling at him. I started hitting him his arm and telling him, stop it. Because I was just like, I don't know what's going on. Like, you're freaking me out and stuff. And, I mean, whoever, like, sat with him in the back, like, they ended up kind of laying him down. He was coherent, but not really responding. And then when we got off, there were paramedics, like, waiting, like, EMTs waiting for us, and had him in a wheelchair, getting him something sweet, whatever. Yeah. And I didn't have my family with me. I didn't have his mom that would know his like, I'm getting asked all these medical questions, and I'm like, I mean, I've been dating him, but I don't know his health history, like, I can't give you this whole rundown.
Information that you need.
Yeah. And I'm overwhelmed, and I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. And we arrive in Orlando in the airport, and there's there's medical personnel waiting for us. You know, I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
wild too, because we have this
wild.
horrible tendency of like asking too many questions too quickly.
Well, but then there's people like me where I'm like, I don't know. Like, you could ask me my phone number in that situation. I'd be like, I don't know. You know,
Because you're frazzled.
because you're just like, you're in that more fear center than really being able to use your rational brain. You know, so
it's, and you know what? And as you get longer in your career and stuff like that, so how I would approach that, I would have asked you like one thing and notice you were frazzled, and I've said, has this ever happened before? You said no. And we've been done. I'm like, cool. All I needed to know.
Right.
You know, and that's it. But then our younger guys would just keep drilling you and drilling you and getting more mad and more mad. Like,
you're not helping me. Calm down.
Yeah.
What is his entire, you know, med list? And I'll be like, dude, I don't care about his med list. Like, it doesn't matter at this point.
So would you say that's partly wisdom or also personality? Like, because you tend to, from what I know of you, you're like this, you know?
Right.
So did you learn that, or are you meant that way?
That is, well, I've always been kind of a lagger, for lack of better. That's what my dad would have said. You were like you were a known lagger. I've always like the last one, and like with our family walking through, I was always but just chilled out like that. But mostly that's just wisdom. That's just over the years, like things we do or that EMS providers do is if your mental status is altered at all, there'll be like these really dumb questions. Like they'll ask you how many quarters in the dollar, what's the year, who's the president.
Yeah.
Like, but so what then I would do, I would come in, if that's what I'm trying to figure out is your mental status, I'm going to ask you questions about you. And when you answer them correctly, okay, we're cool. We don't need to go on down this road of insulting questions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's all wisdom.
And you're really observant. Like, you're always kind of assessing rooms and people and noticing details and stuff. So I think that there's a lot that you always ascertain.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can figure out by just walking in the room, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just learning as you go.
Okay, so that was gonna be like, is that something that they train you on? Like, are you supposed to be looking for specific things as you enter a home, or you approach a person or the people that are around them, or, you know, what are you supposed to observe? Or is that just,
like the thing is always, especially in my district, is always like scene safety. You're supposed to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Most people starting new aren't really. They'll just go headlong into a house and not even paying attention. Like little things, like we knock on the door and then stand to the side of the door.
Gotcha.
You know, just stuff like that. But then when you first approach, it's always just what they say, the ABCs, like airway, breathing, circulation. So if you've spoke back to me and I looked in your eyes to see your pupils are good and you're talking, so you're breathing, and you're upright, so your heart's beating. So boom, there's nothing else. And then we'll get deeper into vitals and that kind of thing. But
you've assessed it right away.
You've assessed the main three things within the first 5 seconds.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's new to me. That's something new. I think I've may have heard early on, and now like to circle back, like that's. Because I mean, when I've gone on a couple of the ride-alongs, I'd be like, everything's an emergency. We have to run there 100 miles an hour.
Oh, man.
And they're just like, you know, hanging out. Like, they're totally yeah. And
I literally don't run anywhere other than just running, but like on scene.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to, like, you know, and they can kind of read between the lines with certain calls and the information that they're given and stuff. So there's a lot there too, with just how many 18 years of experience now?
Yeah. Paramedic wise? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, of getting calls through dispatch and, you know, kind of read between the lines of that stuff, you know. But I didn't know, like, chest pain, like, that person's having a heart attack. We gotta go, you know?
She just went right
and
there.
Then,
yeah.
and then he's opening up doors and grabbing his bag and just, meandering in. I'm like, why are we not running to the door?
That due to some
it's
of
the movie, man. We just gotta run.
Yeah.
Nope.
So do you
you
have
can
a pretty
tell.
good idea just by what information is told to you through the radio, like what you're walking into, or are there times where you're just like, nope, you really have to assess every situation?
I know by the dispatcher who's on EMS radio. I can understand. I can figure out who's
and how they give details.
Who's better trained and how they talk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If there's a dude he's on our radio on same day as I work, so Wednesday through Saturday from like 11 to about 1 or 2, he's on the radio. And the thing he does, if it's really bad, he'll ask me to switch to the TAC channel, which is just a non-monitored channel.
Gotcha. Like private.
It's like more encrypted. So then then we'll talk just normal, like we're talking.
Yeah.
But for the most part, everything pops up on a computer screen in the ambulance, and there's a call taker, and they answer the phone, and they're talking this family or this person to the worst day of their life and typing. So usually there's no punctuation. It's one giant word that we have to figure out what it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I remember one where there's no spaces.
It was literally all letters together.
All the letters together, and they were reading it through.
Yeah.
They were figuring out. I mean,
what
and you guys are kind of chuckling at it. You're like, oh, check this out, And I'm like, what is
like a foreign language?
Yeah,
Right.
So I mean, and I guess I just never.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about that.
That they're on the phone giving that person instructions,
asking questions. And getting information
and coaching them through a lot of times. Like that's the hard job, man. Like what I do is firefighting and EMS, and I can't speak to police work, but dispatch, because they don't get closure. Like I go to the scene, the person lives or they die, or
they don't know how it ends.
Right. And we get there, and once we're on scene, that's it.
Yeah.
They know by the computer when I'm transporting. They know if I'm in immediate danger, because I'll jump on the radio and say we're backing out or we need police assistance or whatever.
Right.
But for the most part, so when you think about that, like recently we've had Genesee County sheriff's deputy was shot in the chest, and then a Burton officer was with him. They were both shot. So once the call is live, the dispatcher's out of the picture so they go to this thing and they're dealing with this subject, and then shots are fired, and now the officer is on his radio, shots fired, I'm hit, or whatever the case. And then so they've gone from they dispatch the call, it's whatever, they're on scene, on to the next 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 calls, and then now all of a sudden this guy that I thought was fine is shot, and all those moving parts.
Right.
And then they got to insert, I wasn't working that day, but like hypothetically, they have to insert me and more officers and all the things, and try to do it in a way that we all stay safe, but they're really relying on our training that we'll just keep ourselves safe.
Right.
And then even with that, and they don't know.
Right.
And in that one, a buddy of mine called me because he had ambulances that he dispatched, but the deputies just put their shot buddies in their cars and took them to the hospital. So I have these 2 officers that have been shot, and now no ambulances are moving, and they're all making themselves available again. Like, what in the world is going on?
Wow.
So, you know what I mean? Yeah. So he's calling me at home. I'm like, I don't know, homie, I'm not working. Like, I have no knowledge other than these 2 dudes got shot. So yeah, dispatch, I think, in my experience, they have it the worst, because they don't have the opportunity to see how everything
ending. Yeah.
Or be able to go,
or
like
talk.
their ability to do and to help is very I mean, sometimes I think about when we're calling and there's somebody in there's somebody in their house and they're talking to somebody, like hiding in their house. Somebody's trying to break in my house or hurt me, and they've got to walk them through, but they can't be there for them.
Right.
They can only hear and listen and give them an instruction, and stay on the phone. So
they're coach them through CPR, do all the things.
Yeah, coaching through. Yeah.
It's wild. It's a wild, strange little subculture of humanity that somehow, and nobody just, the people who think they want to do it that aren't called to it, they rarely survive.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's any of us. Like, you shouldn't do what you're not supposed to do. You need to do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And as believers, I think, just because then we get to kind of ride that, like back to the beginning, like I like to live and breathe what I know I'm born to do out of my purpose, like is a way different feeling than like I'm trying to push against the current of something that wasn't
well, it's like when we had Chuck Kova on way back.
You just show up at your job. Like, you can't just show up to a job and do your work. Like, you got to be invested and committed and devoted. All the things.
Like I took any job after college to pay off my student loans.
Yeah, you're not doing that if you're a dispatcher.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, I did high school and all this stuff, and then from graduation, my dad got transferred again to Colorado, so I just was out there gonna snowboard, but then we got to the point where, okay, you gotta find something to do. And the blessing, I didn't think so at the time, but the blessing is my dad actually sat across like the kitchen table and was like, look, like, college is not going to be for you, very tenderly told me, you're kind of a moron. We aren't going to spend money on college, but here's some choices, and so it was all the branches of service. So I picked the Army out of spite because he was a Marine. And then
forgot about that.
But then and it was, and that was at a point where he was starting to have Alzheimer's symptoms, even relatively young. But I can remember those moments, he set me up on this path.
Yeah.
And then I get out of the military and just did whatever job. And it was like we had an episode early on, or like a couple years ago, we had Chuck Kova on. And the comparison I used is that I was at that, like when you're in a grocery store and you have a cart with a bad wheel.
Yeah.
That's what my life felt like. Like, I'm like, something was not right, and then joined the fire department and realized, oh, that's it. I'm supposed to be in service to people.
Yeah. That's
and
so
it just,
cool. Yeah.
But this is all, that's all I can know how to do, really.
Yeah.
So it's translated great into doing house church and this ministry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's good stuff.
All right.
Thank you for your service.
We've talked about that too.
Am I not supposed to say that?
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
That's what my partner.
Our pleasure. Yeah.
That's what we do.
Oh,
we do the Chick-fil-A thing.
What's that?
We do that. My partner and I do the Chick-fil-A response.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. Our pleasure.
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's been, I have some years left in me, especially now I'm making a transition into a new company, coming up here in the next month or so. So
yeah, congratulations, Jim. That's really exciting.
That's been a hard decision.
I imagine.
And it's going to be, it'll, over the course of this week, probably it'll be public knowledge, but it's what one of the doctor that's the chief medical officer of Hurley Hospital, I've known him my whole career. He compared it to me moving from my company to this new company is the equivalent of Tom Brady moving from the Patriots to the Buccaneers in kind of our little world.
You spent your entire career with one company.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and I'm kind of like the face
of it. Fourth quarter, you're like, hey guys, I'm gonna go.
By the way, but it's just it's a mental health decision.
Yeah.
It's a business decision, but it's mostly a mental health decision.
Well, and I imagine you are not ever somebody that takes any decision like that lightly. So
especially just if you've been with the same company, there's a loyalty there,
and for
that's
your
important
people.
to you. Yeah.
This place has been recruiting me for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like diligently recruiting.
Yeah. Hey,
and it's just
they recognize something in you, that they didn't give up on you.
Yeah, and it'll be cool to see your ability to kind of lead and impact that community, like that sub-community at that perspective and vantage point,
So when, I'm noticing you keep giggling every time I give you a compliment of...
yeah, he does.
Thank you. But I want to go back to, there's a humbleness to that. For you to giggle and just to be like, don't say that to me, because that's just my job or that's what I do. That's when you know that you're supposed to be doing this, because you don't even look at it as I'm going above and beyond for us, right. But we look at it that you are. So just need to take the thank you, but that's really cool to see in you, that there's that to me is humility, in the sense of I don't want to take this credit, and that's what God put in you, and you're doing it. So my husband is very similar in the way of, if people talk about his generosity or something that pinpoints what is at the core of him, he deflects all the time. It has nothing to do with me, and I'm like, just say thank you, or whatever it is, and but that's even a really cool quality and characteristic.
What's been super cool is that our leadership within the church, as I've been there and as we've been doing the thing, and growing to know me, and that I really just would rather just keep it low key. Even in just recently in one of the staff meetings, they mentioned we honor you. It's we know that to honor you is to not honor you, publicly like that. I wouldn't want to be on the stage and taking any type of credit for house campus or anything. But to have them, behind closed doors, look, we it's not lost on us what you have going on here.
We appreciate you.
I'm cool. Yeah. Please never say this in public. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just how I've always kind of been.
Yeah.
My brothers, no, they would rather be everyone known.
Well, they're in very different fields that are supposed to be a little bit more the
in front of your face.
Yeah, and they're supposed to work with brands and people and the thing,
my younger brother Kelly works for Taylor Guitars.
Yeah.
Oh.
So he does all their branding and marketing and
awesome.
And giving away of guitars, and just is knows all kinds of writers and musicians.
Probably. Yeah.
Right. And my older brother was a pro athlete. He raced bicycles. So he lived in Europe.
I remember hearing that story. I don't know if that was from our class or not, but yeah, that was really cool to hear.
So in his day, during his prime, he was in Belgium and a star, a can't go to the bakery, everyone will approach me kind of thing.
Right.
And so, which is different struggles for those two,
Yeah, sure. On the other side of that. Yeah, that's pretty fun. I never told you about the skate park in Boston. After we already got home, I was like, I didn't tell Jim about the cool, Zach goes to the skate park. He's been waiting for the weather to break so he could go back, and it's under an overpass, all graffitied up, but there's a walking trail that's right there, and it's sort of by the harbor, but you can't walk from the harbor to the skate park because there's no bridge over. You have to kind of go out and back over. But I'm like, so I missed that opportunity. So you're gonna have to go back to Boston so you can check out the skate park.
Go back and skate it.
Or have to meet Zach.
It's famous though.
Yeah.
It's in video parts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Spot.
Yeah. So you already knew it. But I was like, I can't believe I didn't
It was just so cold.
But you're with your wife. She might not want to go to the skate park. But I'm like, there, but you can walk.
Hey, we did. She did all the cool things though. We went to the Fenway Park tour.
Yeah.
Which was cool and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
it's awesome.
That's fun.
Then of course, because it's just how my strange mind works, we spent quite a bit of time at the Holocaust Memorial.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't leave. It was weird. That was I
was just talking about that with somebody else that might have been on our trip out to Arizona. I think somebody else just went, and they were just saying it's incredible. Like there's nothing, they've never experienced anything like it.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, there's these towers of glass, kind of like pillars, and like from the ground up, basically, they have etched in them the numbers of the tattoo numbers, and it's just, I have a picture I took, and it's just like
one little
part of it.
Yeah, one little piece, but there's just hundreds of these numbers, and just to be in those spaces, it is strange what humans do to each other, huh?
Yeah. And that some people don't even believe it happened, you know? Like, it's wild. So
yeah, that's it.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was kind of fun.
That was so fun. I love it when we just kind of roll with the travels and roll with the adventure, you know, and
well, it was a privilege and an honor to be asked. It was funny. I'm like, what do I do? She's like, just ask questions.
I was like, you want to be on the podcast? And you're like, sure.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah, fun. Absolutely.
It's always fun for us to have somebody on and just share life and talk about stuff. Yeah. And you've definitely brought like a whole different kind of level of perspective and questions and stuff. I think that there's stuff that even now I've heard differently all this time just because of the conversation that we had tonight. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So thanks for sharing, because I got to know you a little bit more too each and every time.
Right
so
on.
That's fun. Yeah.
Hear my dogs outside right now. Our dogs are saying hi to our neighbor dogs.
Hi, friend. Hi, neighbor.
They do.
Over? Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you. Enjoy. When you guys come back?
Saturday. Well, I come back Saturday night, and then Kel's staying a little longer with Dan.
Yeah, so I won't be there. I think we have another class on Thursday. It might be the last one. I don't know, but I'm probably out for the rest of the season. So yeah, but I'm gonna need some accountability. That it did help me with.
You do.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like, I hope I don't fall back into this procrastinating, like, you know, or I don't know where to go from here kind of thing. And nobody's going to really, more people know that I'm writing a book. So more people will probably ask me about how it's going. But yeah, that weekly.
Where you at?
Yeah.
Where you at? Have you been writing?
Yeah. It's been good. So.
Yeah. Well, right on then.
All right.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
What do we need to do? You're looking at me, Ashley, like.
You got to do the outro.
The what?
The outro. He's got
every week.
You have a tagline or.
He does so great at it. I never wanted to. I do the intro. He does the outro. It's great.
But I forget every week.
It's all right. I think, and it's only really the times that we have guests.
So now you know the look when she gives you that look.
She's like, she's waiting.
It's because we get into all these great conversations, and I think
keep going and keep going,
and then, that's just how it goes.
All right, ready?
Yes.
The outro.
Yes.
Okay.
Can't wait to hear
it. Thank you, Freedom Center Church and Kingdom Builders, for your continued love and support. Thanks to our listeners. Thanks, Kelly Abel, for coming on the show. And check us out on the socials. This episode is up tomorrow.
Yep.
I think Ashley's on vacation, so
I'll be up
tomorrow. All right. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.